Okay, guys, thanks for tuning in. This is actually my first attempt here at doing a kind of a post-race breakdown video where I kind of do some commentating over a Zwift race I did. I did this race here this past Tuesday. It was the Sweat Fest East race, and this was actually there for the month of January here in 2020, or excuse me, 2021. It's actually there's an ongoing Empire State eRacing series that I'm taking part in, and this here is actually race number 3. And like I said, I'm actually on my warm up right here, but as you can see, I'm just getting ready to actually jump into the event. I'm actually just this was my first attempt, guys, at trying to record my screen during the race. So bear with me if there's some technical difficulties here early on. But okay, I just got in. Yeah, this was the Sweat Fest Fall Winter Series. And like I said, this is race 3 of the Empire State e-racing series going on for the month of January. I'm gonna probably fast forward. Actually, you know what? I want to talk you guys through this last minute. Just a couple of things that I do when I enter a Zwift race is, as you guys saw, I didn't join the race until pretty much like a minute and a half before the event, and that's just kind of what I do personally. What I usually do is I usually get on my rollers, start warming up, anywhere from a half an hour to 20 minutes before the race starts. And then what I do is through the mobile companion app is I sync over to the race literally about a minute and a half before the race starts. So I got my fresh warm up in. And another thing that I do, now you see the countdown here at 25 seconds before the race, because I ride my bike on rollers, I actually, about now, shift into my big ring. And so I pretty much want to hit this last 10 seconds in the big ring. And pretty much when it gets to a countdown of 7, I'm pretty much starting to wind things up. And you'll see the power here really start to pick up. There it goes, up over 300 here to start. You want to hit these starts really moving, because as we all know on Zwift race starts are very fast. And my general rule of thumb personally, when I'm starting out a Zwift race, is come out of the gates hard, but I don't like to jump right out into the lead. I usually will do what I have to do to stay in that front draft, and really no more. My goal early on in the race like this is to just get into the front draft. Now, you saw we had one guy there jump up the road by a couple of seconds, and I noticed right off the bat, he is one of the guys in the Empire State e-racing series. So that's somebody I've already got my eye on. But this early in the race with a pretty big field here of some fast guys, I really had no interest in joining him. I really, at this point, did not think he was going to have much of a chance to stay out in front of us. I believe it was a Hogan. I believe the guy was Hogan that was up there. But as you guys see, top right hand, if you look at the top right hand corner of the Zwift of the screen, you'll see like a map, and then that lead little red dot, and then kind of a bigger group of guys. That's like a visual representation you can get of where people are on the course. I've got my eye on that guy. I know he's up there. But again, my initial thoughts at this point is I just want to be at the front. I don't want to work too hard. But I also didn't want this Hogan guy, because I could see that he's riding, 5.5, 6 watts per kilo here quite a bit. I don't want him to go getting like a 20-second lead on us. So I'm doing a little bit of work at the front just to kind of keep the tempo steady, just to kind of keep this guy within, just kind of keep him at arm's reach, so to speak. So you guys will probably see me here a couple of times in this first couple of miles. I'll be up at the front, and again, I'm just keeping the tempo steady. If you guys see, my power here is 234. It's going to obviously vary. Now you guys will see that my cadence is pretty low. My cadence here is mid-60s. That's because I personally am an out-of-saddle rider pretty much 95% of the time during a Zwift race. I really only sit down in the saddle to really towel off and to drink and eat. But otherwise, I'm usually out of the saddle, regardless of how long this event is. Now, just I wanted to give you guys a quick kind of update on what my strategy was going to be in this race. I'm a very lightweight rider. I'm like 123 to 125 pounds, depending on the day. I did not want to have this race come down to any kind of a big field sprint. So I was going to be looking for an opportunity to attack and hopefully bring just a couple of, maybe a handful of guys with me. And I was hoping to maybe put some distance into the other guys that I'm battling with in the Empire State eRacing series. Now you see Hogan was joined up there with a guy, and again, I'm still not overly concerned. I mean, they're only 4 seconds up the road. We've got some fast guys in this group. This is an A race. So, again, I'm keeping an eye on things. I'm staying up at the front of the field, and I'm going to at least keep a solid tempo going. Again, just to kind of keep those guys from getting like a 10 or 20 second plus lead, because then it's a lot harder to bring guys back and to get other guys in the field encouraged to bring people back. So again, I can see that their lead is kind of maintained. The lead has kind of been steady, about that 5 second range. And I have begun to notice that M. Hogan, that his watts per kilo have been kind of trending downward. So I'm thinking these guys are going to come back to us. So again, I just want to sit in the pack here, do as much drafting as I can, keep my heart rate, in a good place. And just so you guys can get a reference, my maximum heart rate is around, is basically 197 to 200 beats per minute. So I'm well within myself here at this point. And again, we just came up a 3% rise. I'm just doing what I have to do to stay in the front group. And you see things are starting to get a little bit splintered here a little bit. So I'm attentive to this. You see my power here is 370, that's, 6.7, almost 7 watts, well, actually now over 7 watts per kilo. So I know that I don't want to let, 8, 10 guys here get up the road on me. So I'm very tentative to get back on the draft here and get things dialed in. And right about here I noticed it appears that we have reeled in that M. Hogan and the other guy there. So now we're back together. And right about now, I'm trying to think about, okay, when do I want to make my move? Because like I said earlier, I do not want this race to come down to a field sprint, because, my maximum sprinting power, my maximum 15-second sprinting power, you guys can see if you look at me, if you look at my profile on Zwift Power, I don't even have an 11 watt per kilo 15-second sprint. So I cannot, bring guys to the line, so to speak, and boil these races down to a sprint, because I'm going to get dusted by the majority of the field. So I've got in my mind where I'm going to make this first attack. I'm very familiar with this course, and I know that we are going to be basically doing 3 laps of this it's called the Volcano Flat course, but there is like maybe a 30-second long, if that. There's a pretty short, punchy climb that we're going to do 3 times in this race, and I pretty much had it in my mind coming into this race that climb is where I was going to try to make a move and try to split this field up if I could. So I was just kind of, thinking to myself, do I want to do it on lap 1? Do I want to do it on lap 2? Do I want to wait till the last lap? And right about, somewhere in here, I'm thinking, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make, an effort on this very first lap. If nothing else, I just kind of want to see who, if anybody, can go with me, so to speak. And I would give it a try. And if the majority of the field was able to come with me and close back up, then I would just decease the effort and maybe try again on lap 2 or 3. But right now, up until that climb, the only thing I'm doing is just pretty much doing as little as I have to just stay in this lead pack. Looks like we got 27 guys in the race total. I don't know. Maybe a few of the guys got shelled off earlier in the race, but you can see certainly the majority of us are still here. Again, the pace, you guys can see by my heart rate. My heart rate has actually gone down a little bit from earlier on in the race, so that's a good indication that obviously, at least my intensity effort has decreased, since those first couple of miles. And again, I mean, I'm just riding, a tempo here. I'm not riding hard, but I'm just, the way the draft works on Zwift is a lot of times you will see, your avatar kind of go from the front to the back of the pack to the front, just if you kind of keep a steady effort going. It's just the way the draft works a lot of times. I just try to keep my effort steady, and as long as my effort's able to keep me in that front group, I personally try to keep the effort as steady as I can, and not, and just try to limit the amount of times that I kind of, go into the red. Now, there's another punchy climb here coming up. I've seen guys try to attack here in the past, so I'm attentive here. You'll see my power probably come up a little bit. I want to make sure that I certainly stay in this front group until we get over top of the hill, and then we can kind of get back into a downhill where I can kind of take some power off and draft. Now, again, I know that we're only maybe 3 or 4 minutes away from when this hill, from this, short punchy hill is going to come up, where I'm going to, attempt to make my move. So right now I'm just trying to, and you see my cadence right there is up in the 80s. I know that, right here I am actually sitting down, probably taking a drink of water, maybe, grabbing something to eat real quick, a bite to eat, and probably toweling off. So anytime you guys see my cadence, like right now, up around 80, that's pretty much a good indication that I'm probably seated. And then when my cadence dips back down to that 60s range, that mid 60s range, that's a pretty good indication that I'm, back standing up. And you see, I kind of get gapped here a little bit. Again, being a lightweight rider, I have found that on the downhills on Zwift, I've got to pay attention, or else, the pack, will gap me a little bit. I don't know why that is, but something with the Zwift algorithm, it certainly does not favor, lightweight riders when it comes to going downhill. I mean, honestly, I have probably been dropped more often on Zwift going downhill than I ever have going uphill. So I'm always attentive when I'm going downhill on Zwift to make sure I am, strongly in the draft. So any of you lightweight riders out there, that's one tip I would certainly offer, is to, if you're getting ready to get into a downhill section, make sure you are tucked in good in the draft. And now right here, I'm taking inventory. You can see the names of the riders here. Every now and then you'll see a guy come up and it'll end in Empire. That was the directions we got from the Empire State eRacing organizers. They wanted us to put the Empire at the end of our name so that we could kind of recognize each other out there. Again, I know from looking at the standings that the guy here, M. Very, with one of the Canadian flags, he's in the series. M. Hogan is also in the series. And there's a few other names here that I'm recognizing as being in the series, as well as the guys with the Empire. Now again, we're getting very close to that short punchy climb. Right now, I'm pretty much committed that I'm gonna make a move right up here on this short steep volcano climb. And right now, I'm really just trying to prepare myself for the attack. And all I'm doing is I want to start my attack not from the very front of the field, but certainly at the front end of the field. And I'm gonna I'm already committed. I'm going to go like literally about 5 seconds before we actually start going up the climb. I've already pre-committed. This is where I was going to make my attack. And I mean, this first lap, I really just kind of wanted to see if I could, in fact, do some damage and maybe, you know, splinter the group up a little bit and just see who could come and who couldn't, so to speak. So we're getting very close to the climb here. We should hit it at this next, yeah, here it comes. So right about now, I am pretty much starting to wind things up. You'll see the power increase. There it goes, up into the 3, up around 400. And I am fully committed to an attack here, and I'm just going to try to see if I can split this field. I'm up, you see I'm up to over 8 watts per kilo, 8.5 over 9 watts per kilo, almost 10. Again, I want to get a gap. I can see obviously here that I am creating a gap. I'm stringing the field out. Again, I'm just going to fully commit to this and just see who can come and who can't. I've got a gap established, and you see this one cryogen rider here kind of makes the junction with me. And at this point, you know, I mean, you guys can see my heart rate here is 193. I'm working extremely hard. I wanted this guy to come around me so I could recover a little bit. And right now, I see we've got a gap on the field, and I am 100% committed to making this work. I noticed the cryogen guy taking a little bit of steam off, so I went right back to the front, keeping the pace high. I'm not gonna leave it down to, you know, coordination with this cryogen rider. If he's capable of swinging off here with me and helping extend the gap, fine. And a couple of times he does come by me here. You see he's back up around me at you know, 5+ watts per kilo. I'm going to take advantage of that and recover a little bit and use that draft. And I'm keeping very close attention to how much of a gap we've got here on the rest of the field. You can see it's already 3 seconds. But again, as soon as I notice that the cryogen rider is, you know, taking the pace off, and I feel like I can re-emphasize the pace, I come right back around him. And I'll be honest with you guys, right about here, I was thinking to myself, I don't think this cryogen rider is going to be either willing or able to work with me as much as I need to fully commit to this move, because I mean, I have just made, you know, a couple of minute effort here at very, you know, high power. I do not want this effort to fail. So as you can see, I've remained on the front. I'm just really settling in to my threshold, to a threshold pace. I mean, you know, 188 heart rate is certainly, you know, within the realms that I can hold for an extended period of time. Again, every now and then, when this cryogen rider, you know, would come by me, I would take the couple of seconds to just get a little bit of rest. But again, you know, as soon as I kind of felt he was taking the pace off, again, I came back around him, because again, I wanted to create a substantial gap here, and the gap is continuing to go out. I mean, it's now up to about 6 seconds over the field. And so right now, I'm just really riding my threshold pace. If this cryogen rider can help me at all, great. If he can't, then I'm just going to come by him and do what I have to do to hopefully, you know, extend and maintain this gap that we've gotten here. And right now, I'm actually, you know, in my head, I'm actually thinking about, okay, where am I going to, because, I mean, you know, like I told you guys a couple of minutes ago, I'm really thinking that this cryogen rider is not going to be strong enough. Let me kind of rephrase that. He's certainly, and he's already been demonstrating this, he is looking to have me do the majority of the work here. He seems to be more than content to have me do the lion's share here and willing to just draft off me. Of course, you know, even though I know this guy's not in the Empire series, I still don't want to, you know, drag this guy to the finish line if I don't have to. I mean, if he's not going to be able to help me, you know, establish and maintain this gap, I might as well try to find a place to get rid of him if I can. So I'm already kind of thinking about, okay, how do I want to go about attacking this guy and, you know, pretty much going away solo if I can. So I've pretty much already been thinking in my head that once we kind of cut back onto the, well, we're on to lap 2 now, but once we kind of get back into the water tunnel, when you come out of the water tunnel, there's going to be it's a pretty short, like a 3 or 4% grade. I was already thinking in my mind, that is where I'm going to try to hit this guy and see if I can, create a gap. And again, at this point, I am 100%, every chip on my table is pushed into the center. I am all in to make this, attack stick. And again, I mean, I'll certainly, be welcome to take, any assistance that this cryogen rider can offer me. But I'm not in any way, even looking, for the help. If he can give me some, great. If he can't or doesn't want to, that's great too. I'm fully committed to just doing it myself at this point. But you will see, and you've already seen, some swapping off. Now again, I'm keeping very close attention to the gap, and you can see now it's 8 seconds to the very front of it, and some of the guys are even as far back as it looks like 13 seconds. So I know that the field is being split up, and you'll see some messages here start to come up. Basically, some of the guys I think are, I don't know, maybe starting to question the validity of the effort here. But I can assure you guys that I'm racing with a set of P1 power tap pedals that are calibrated and set to the right crank length. But again, I'm an out of saddle rider. I mean, I have been riding out of saddle basically, since I made the attack. I mean, I did sit down a couple of times very briefly, honestly, just to towel off and take a couple of swigs of water. But 98% of the time since the attack, pretty much since the race started, I have been standing, and you guys can tell that by my cadence. Again, whenever you see my cadence in that 62 to 70 range, I'm standing, and when I'm up around 80 plus, that's when I'm sitting. But you'll see the vast majority of the time it is in the 60s, which is an indication that I am standing. So again, I know we are getting kind of close to that climb. Now I can see here that we've got a 10-second gap, and again, some guys are even further back than that. But we've got a 10-second gap here to the field, and now it's 11. So I'm thinking in my head, okay, we are continuing to extend this gap a little bit, and we're certainly not losing any. So you see that the power has dipped off here a little bit back into that strong tempo range, and now the gap is 12 seconds. So I'm thinking, hey, if we can get away with riding strong tempo and having this gap either extend or at least stay the same, I'm going to go ahead and take advantage of that, because again, I'm trying to get a little bit of recovery, because I'm planning on dropping another big surge, a big attack on this cryogen rider, here in just a mile or two. So I'm using this time right here to get my watts per kilo back down a little bit, just so I can recover. And you guys can see my heart rate has come down now to 171, which is a lot less than the upper 180s, mid 180s I was running a couple of minutes ago. So I have been able to get a little bit of recovery, and the gap in the race here has still extended out to 13 seconds now. So okay, now we're getting right here is where I'm going to make the attack. I want this guy to kind of lead it out a little bit, so I'm actually taking the power off here a little bit, and this guy obliges, comes by me, and right here I'm thinking, all right, I'm going to really put some power out, and I'm going to try to get a gap here. And pretty much right there, I throw the power on, back up to 370, 6.5, almost 7 watts per kilo. And right here, I'm thinking, all right, I got to get a gap. And again, I'm going to go back into a threshold effort if I can get the gap. I can see the gap obviously here expanding. And again, when you're making a surge like this, the only thing I'm really focusing on is my watts per kilogram. As you see in that right-hand column, my watts per kilogram and the guy I'm attacking, his watts per kilogram, and as long, and you can see, like, my watts per kilogram has been higher than his. So I see he's running 4.5, 5. I know I can, dial it down a little bit, and as long as I'm higher watts per kilo, I'm still going to extend the gap, because I don't want to go too hard here making this surge to where I cannot settle back into a threshold effort. And as you guys see, my heart rate now is back up to 190. So that obviously was a pretty big effort I put in there. Again, I've got that 2-second gap, and right now I'm just trying to do my best to settle back into a rhythm. Again, an out of the saddle standing rhythm where I can, hopefully kind of blend into that upper 80s, heart rate range, which is a threshold effort for me. And I've extending the gap here just ever so slightly, and I can see the field now kind of closing back in. And what I was hoping was going to happen right now was I was thinking, all right, if this cryogen rider's probably going to have to go back to the field, and if he does, I was kind of hoping that, all right, if the field brings him back, they're going to think, all right, now we've just got one guy out there on his own, still got a lap and a half left here. Odds are we're going to be able to bring that guy back. And so I was hoping that it would kind of lull the field. I'm not going to say into a false sense of security, but maybe just get them a little bit less concerned now that there was just one guy up the road as opposed to two of us, because anytime obviously you've got, the more riders up the road, working with each other and drafting, obviously the harder it is to pull them back. So now again, I can see the gap here is, in that 7-second range. Again, at this point, I know I've got pretty much a lap and a half here to just try to ride as strong of a threshold effort as I can. You guys can see my cadence is going to be steady in the mid-60s, maybe pushing 70 at times. And my heart rate, is in that upper 180s range, which, again, I know that, this is my physiological norms, for when I'm in a hard threshold effort. I'm just trying to keep the watts per kilogram anywhere from, 5.5 to, maybe 6.2, somewhere in that range. I'm thinking in my head, if I can just kind of hold the watts per kilo steady in that range, I've got a fair chance of making this stick, because right now, if you're in, for the guys that are back in the main field, somebody is going to have to take the onus to do the work. And what I have found in these Zwift races, and even in real life racing, a lot of times when you get a breakaway up the road, I mean, yeah, the field, the field as a whole back there, there's no question is strong enough to pull me back if they would all truly invest in the effort. But the problem is, you got to get all the guys to invest into the effort, or else it kind of just gets disrupted and kind of nobody ends up taking it on. So at this point, I'm just kind of hoping that these guys all just kind of start watching each other and, kind of keep thinking the other guy's going to do the effort, and that really kind of nobody kind of takes up the onus to bring me back. And as you guys can see, the gap is now extended to 13 seconds, which is, just, helping fuel, my motivation to keep the effort going. So again, I'm onto a downhill, and you guys will probably see here, anytime I hit a downhill section, I will utilize those points to sit. You see my cadence here is 80, so I'm seated, I'm toweling off, I'm taking a couple of drinks of water, probably, taking a bite of my lard bar is what I was eating tonight. I'm taking a couple hits of the lard bar, drinking some water, toweling off. So I pretty much will use these downhill sections, any downhill sections, as a momentary place to sit. Again, drink, eat, towel off, grab a little bit of recovery. See, my heart rate got back down to below 180, so I snagged a little bit of recovery. And pretty much once I get back down to the bottom of this downhill section and back onto the flats, you'll see my power pick back up. Because I've just gotten a little momentary period of recovery, so now I can kind of get back to the effort. And again, I'm just obviously what I'm doing here is I'm just trying to feather the gap. I'm just trying to, if I can, I'm just trying to keep this gap. I mean, I'm trying to get more time. Don't get me wrong, but it's not easy. When you're trying to get time on an entire peloton like this. So I'm really trying to at least make sure I at least feather the gap and at least just kind of hold it to where it is. If I could just keep it 12 seconds, I'd kind of be content here. You see my power went back up over 300. Cadences dipped back down to the mid 60s. Heart rate, you should see it start to steadily kind of start climbing here again as I kind of get back into the threshold effort again. Again, the gap here is 13 seconds. And, I'm just kind of, I want to make sure I get enough recovery here where because I obviously we're gonna be hitting that steep climb again. I don't want to, because you can lose a lot of time on a steep climb like that if you don't hit it with high power. So even though I want to kind of keep this gap maintained or maybe even extend a little bit, I also want to make sure I don't go too hard to where I can't hit that next hill, with a strong dose of power, and lose a bunch of time. So you guys can see there the gap has actually now gotten to 14 seconds. And again, what I was hoping would happen has kind of happened. You can tell by the watts per kilo that, the rest of the guys in the field are really kind of, just kind of all thinking or hoping that one of the other guys is going to take up the onus to bring me back, or at least to initiate things. And it ends up, you get into this place where everybody just kind of keeps looking at each other and the work never really gets done. So this is working to my benefit here. And again, I'm just keeping the power steady, keeping the cadence steady at a pace that I know I can maintain here for the next 9 miles. And we're going to be getting very close to that second climb here. Again, I want to walk you guys through this climb. You should see my power take a significant jump here, because again, I want to hit this climb strong. Because climbing is my strength, so I want to maximize, my strengths on the parts of the course that are good for me. And anytime the course goes uphill, is usually in my strength. So I want to maximize on this and see if I can't maybe edge out even a couple of more seconds here in the field. As you can see, I've now got a 16-second gap, and I can see the pack there. They're all together. Certainly, this certainly is not a comfortable gap, and I can already see that some of the guys back in 8th, 9th, 10th are back even a little bit further, at least according to that clock there. Although that the blob in the top right hand corner, it looked like it kind of showed everybody together. So at this point, I don't really know if everybody's together or not. I'm actually assuming they are, because they were all together on the screen. So, but I'm probably going to just jump ahead here a little bit for you guys, and because we're coming into another lap here. Now I'm going to just go ahead to basically 7 miles to go, and as you guys can see, the gap has actually extended out to 18 seconds. So I was able to put a couple of more seconds into the field, once I got over top of that second volcano climb, and now I've come down through the back down the descent, come back around to the start banner, and now I'm coming into the third lap with a 19-second advantage. Again, you guys can see the watts per kilo staying steady. Again, I'm just trying to keep it above 5 if I can, anywhere from 5 to 6, hopefully. Just keeping, my cadence has been just, dialed here steady, 66, 65, this is a complete out-of-saddle effort at this point, and I'm just trying to edge out every second I can. There was actually some, I don't know if they'll pop up here or not again, but maybe I didn't shoot by them, but there was actually some comments. One of the guys here in the field actually starts messaging the other guys in the field, basically talking about, I'm assuming he maybe looked up my profile here during the race, but basically saying, how can a 55.8 kilo rider, hold the field at bay, basically kind of alleging that I wasn't a legit rider here. I don't know. But obviously I just kind of ignored the messages. They are what they are. people are going to say things, on these Zwift races. You just got to kind of ignore that stuff and just do what you got to do, and just race hard, which is what I'm doing. Again, the gap now is actually it's up to 22 seconds. I'm going to just kind of scroll ahead here just another little bit here for you guys. Okay, and now we're down to 5.2. Down to 5.2 miles to go. Again, the gap is now up to 23 seconds. So again, I've been just kind of keeping the power steady. Again, dialing right into that mid-60s RPMs. Heart rate, 180, which for me is something I know I can sustain this. I can certainly sustain this effort for the next 5 miles. 181, although I'm working really hard, it's really not my max by any means. Again, I'm just feathering the gap, and I'll be honest with you guys. At this point, I was really thinking, all right, there's no way these guys are gonna pull back 20 seconds on me. And I was actually maybe getting a little bit overconfident, because I tell you what, in the last mile or two, and I knew this was gonna happen. As we got closer to the finish line, the guys that are back there, if nothing else, they're going to be jockeying for their own positions, second through whatever. So even if they don't think they can catch me, their pace as a pack is still going to generally increase as you get closer to the line, because they're all now, if nothing else, just jockeying amongst each other, for their own individual positions. And you can see here, one of the guys, this T. Quass, I'm not sure who that is, but he was the guy I noticed in these last, handful of miles. He was the one I noticed that was really kind of taking the onus to try to bring me back. Another guy that I noticed there too is S. Rupp. You guys see the name? He's one of the Empire riders, but S. Rupp. And I believe I've actually raced. I've raced him in real life. Actually, he's a New York State racer. I believe he was in the 2019 New York State Road Race Championships at Bristol Mountain in Canandaigua, New York. I believe I raced him there. Really strong rider. So I knew he would, probably be, and I noticed him also as one of the guys that was really kind of spearheading the mission to bring me back. And as you can see, the gap is now actually starting to decrease a little bit. And at this point, I'll be honest with you guys, I'm certainly not 100% confident anymore that I'm going to hold this to the line like I was really even just about a mile ago, when the gap was, 20, 23 seconds. I was thinking I had it pretty much in the clear. But, I mean, and you guys can see my heart rate's actually gone up a little bit, as well as the power, because now I'm beginning to feel that, all right, these guys are really, making a concerted effort here to bring me back in. So I'm just trying to do my best to just stay them off, if I can. The gap here looks like it's 19 seconds. I'm going to just scroll ahead here just a little bit more. When we get over top of this climb here. Okay, so you guys see we went back over the climb. Now we're back onto that volcano flat here just before the last climb. Again, the gap is right around 19 seconds. Again, I'm confident I can hold it. I mean, obviously, as the tenths of miles click off, I'm getting more and more confident, in the fact that I'm going to be able to hold these guys off. But and I still haven't been seeing anybody make that real strong, 5-6 watt per kilogram sustained effort, to bring me back. So it looks like, generally speaking, the field here, for the most part, is kind of, I would again, I'm not in there, I don't know for sure, but based off the watts per kilogram I'm seeing, it looks as though the majority of the guys in there are kind of still just kind of watching one another, and kind of hoping that somebody else is going to kind of take on the work here to bring me back. And see, the gap is now actually re-extended back up to 22. as we're getting ready to come into that last climb, that last steep climb here. And again, my goal here obviously is I want to, you see my heart rate tick back down a little bit. I wanted to snag a little bit of recovery. So again, so I could hit this last climb, at a very strong output, because, uphill is where you can lose the most amount of time in a hurry in these Zwift races. And plus, again, I'm still seeing the gap increase. So I'm like, hey, if I can get away with, excuse me, if I can get away with dialing things down to tempo, I'm going to do that. And now you see my power just really took a big bolt. It took a big bolt up there, back up into the upper 370s, over 400 watts. Again, I want to hit this climb really, really strong. Up around 7 watts per kilo, give or take, somewhere there, a little over. Again, want to get over this climb as strong as I can. Again, for me, this is a complete out-of-saddle effort. Riding out of the saddle sustained here. Again, I'm seeing the gap actually increase to 24 seconds. So at this point, I'm really, I'm really confident at this point that I should be able to hang on. So again, I want to keep the power high, but again, my heart rate here is 184. Obviously, I'm getting fatigued at this point, so my heart rate's not going to be able to get as high as it would have, been able to earlier on in the race, because I've been pretty much riding threshold here for almost basically 40 minutes here. I've been riding a threshold pretty much for the most part. So you're gonna see, So as you get longer into a threshold effort like this, your maximum heart rate is going to kind of continue to come down, the longer the effort goes. So, so like right now, when I see that, low, mid 180s heart rate, with how deep I am into this threshold effort, that's actually, a really strong indication that I'm pedaling really hard, and that I'm getting fatigued, is because my heart rate's not able to get as high as it was earlier on in the race. Now you can see the gap here has trickled back down to 19 seconds. You see we had a guy there in the field that was just doing like 7.2 watts per kilo. So there's the 8.9 from Steve Rupp, 9 watts per kilo, 8.4. So there's no doubt that that Steve Rupp is really the guy that's at this point, spearheading the effort. And you guys can see the gap is kind of dwindling here every second. And again, I'm pedaling hard. At this point, I'm, certainly wanting to stay away. And I'm riding, very hard, and the gap kind of continues to trickle down here as the seconds go on. You see it's back down to 17, 16 seconds. I got 0.9 miles to go. And you see, again, it's hard to fully gauge on this clock you see here on the right hand side on this chart, because a lot of times it's not a fully accurate gauge of just how far back the guys are. And you can see it's down to 16 seconds, 12 seconds. Actually, Steve Rupp is actually 12 seconds back, as you can see. And now I see that, okay, Steve Rupp has actually gotten a gap here over the rest of the field. He's gotten a gap now. So he is, in fact, closer to me. He is, 12 seconds back. So at this point, I'm like, gosh, I can't let this guy catch me. So, now you see my power really come back up again, up into, over 300, 360 watts now, 350, 340. I'm just want to keep the power high to ensure that I hold off, because at this point, I know that these guys are going to come charging to the finish line. So I need to keep my power, as high as I can. You see my heart rate now is up at the 186. So I'm going, very hard at this point. My kind of like my last ditch effort here to kind of hold things off. Looks like the gap here with to Rupp was still showing 12 seconds. So at this point, I'm thinking, all right, I believe I've got the race won. You see I've actually taken the power off a little bit. I'm actually seated now. You can see by my cadence, I am seated in the saddle. And I have taken the power off a little bit, which probably accounts for a little bit of the gap that the guys made up to the line, because I've obviously, going to win the race here. So So there you have it, guys. And you see all the oranges as the guys come sprinting into the line, and I ended up winning, I don't know, by like 12 or by like 10 seconds. No, actually 7 seconds. I think 7 seconds was what I actually ended up winning by. So there you have it, guys. I just, thought I would, make an attempt here at making one of these Zwift race videos where I kind of, commentate over afterwards and just kind of, walk you guys through, what I was thinking during the race and kind of what my strategies were and stuff like that. If anybody has any questions, drop them down here in the comment section. I'll do my best to answer. And I'll look forward to seeing you guys in my next Zwift race video. All right, guys, safe riding out there.